mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable now in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. There are laws being considered now in... I'm going to need that water right away. Okay. Laws being considered in 8 or 9 states right now, including Minnesota and North Dakota, that would, if approved, require protesters to pay the law enforcement costs associated with their protests. What's happening to the right to peacefully protest that's been one of the hallmarks of our democracy? What's happening to justice? 3 years ago, exactly, our youngest son had a terrible snowboarding accident out in Bozeman, Montana, but he was here a few weeks ago. He's fine. It was a terrible thing, came an inch from death or permanent disability, but now he's doing great. But when we went out to get him and brought him back on campus briefly, he posted his accident on YouTube. He wasn't wearing a helmet, but he was wearing a GoPro. So it captured his tumble down the mountain some 500 feet. But it was amazing. It was amazing a few of the just nasty comments that people posted online, replete with expletives, blaming and belittling him for the accidents. With the internet, with social media, for some people, it's licensed without filter to be completely mean-spirited, to say anything one feels like about another, with or without profanity. What's happening to kindness? My bride has an acronym that she came up with called DAM. Think capital letters, D-A-A-M. It stands for Defensive, Aggressive, Arrogant Male. It resulted from one too many conversations and encounters with men that she had had, often in the public consumer interaction sphere, where these men would come off authoritative, know-it-alls, when it was not that hidden that they were bluffing, that they didn't really know what they were talking about. About me, she says, usually I'm simply a DAM, D-A-M, a defensive, aggressive male. She says, generally I don't come across as arrogant, but let me be clear that generally not coming across as arrogant is not the same thing as being genuinely humble. So for a moment, policies, partisan politics aside, what kind of man is our current president? As a presidential candidate, he self-proclaimed himself a great Christian. It's an interesting choice of words. I know a lot of things are great. Yet 19th century Christian Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard would not even call himself Christian. Didn't want to use that title about himself. Could you ever imagine Mother Teresa calling herself a great Christian? What's happening to humility? But wait a minute. Have justice, kindness, and humility ever been our natural human default? I don't think so. I don't think so. In the first lesson, the prophet Micah is in a situation where there is a controversy between God and the people. There is a gap, there is some brokenness. And the response of the people is to try to think what kind of religious sacrificial offerings they can make that will make things right in their relationship with God. But the prophet responds, there ain't nothing you can do in the way of religious sacrifices. God isn't interested in these religious sacrifices. God is interested in what kind of people you are. What kind of people you are. And God's list is really short and sweet. God is interested, according to Micah, in people who do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God. All three would seem to be in short supply these days. But then it seems to me they kind of always have been. It's important to keep them linked together as well. Some of us heard a lot of speakers yesterday at the Isaiah event, a lot of great preaching. One point stood out for me. Reverend Brian Herron, African-American pastor at Zion Baptist, he was talking about doing justice, but then he linked it with humility. He said it's really easy for those of us, referring to those in the room and listening, who think we are about doing justice, to become arrogant with others who may not see things the same way. And it wasn't just because I knew that that was the text this morning, but linking doing justice with humility was one of the points that really I came away with. I believe these practices, doing justice, loving kindness, walking humbly with God, are inseparable, and they reflect our character and the authenticity of our faith or our quest for faith. And while they may not come naturally for most of us, I know they don't come naturally for me. I do believe that they can be cultivated. I believe we can grow in these practices by grace and with the help of each other in community. But I want to focus the remainder of my message on that middle one, kindness. I don't believe that kindness is the same as niceness. We might be tempted to go there, but it's not the same as niceness because, now there's nothing wrong with being nice. I would rather be known as a nice person than a nasty person. But kindness is deeper than niceness. Niceness can be a cover, right? It can be a cover for indifference. It can be a cover for veiled hostility. It can be a cover for just really wanting others to like us and to make sure we don't cause any offense. Following Jesus does not mean being nice all the time. As a matter of fact, if we seek to be prophetic, there are times when in speaking truth to power, we will say things and do things that others will not consider to be nice, that may be in their face. But kindness is much deeper than niceness. Kindness, like I told the kids, is about our words, our attitudes, and our actions that treat others with respect. Doesn't matter whether we like the other person, it's treating others with respect. I stumbled across an article this past week. It was reprinted in the New York Times, January 23rd, 2017. A woman, she's a professor, a philosophy professor at Georgetown. Her name is Karen Storr. The name of the article is Our New Age of Contempt. Our New Age of Contempt. And think here, contempt equaling mean-spiritedness, the opposite of kindness. She references philosopher Immanuel Kant, who recognized that the stability and the progress of a society is linked to restraint. To restraint from people publicly expressing everything that they're thinking and feeling, especially when all those inner thoughts and feelings involve contempt for fellow human beings. Let's be honest, we all feel contempt at times. We're lying if we say otherwise. But society requires some restraint in not publicly expressing all that, because Kant recognized that contempt dehumanizes others, and therefore it's dangerous. And if it becomes too publicly widespread, it can actually undermine the foundation of society. You see, contempt is directed at the whole person, not just part of the person. If I'm angry with you, I can still engage you. But if I show contempt towards you, I can just completely dismiss you. You're not worthy of engagement. Contempt flags the other person as not worthy of being engaged, not a full member of the human community. But she says that contempt expressed by the socially powerful toward the socially vulnerable is morally more dangerous because of that power than the contempt that flows in the other direction. So again, policy, partisan stuff aside, where are we as a society when our president and the old title, the leader of the free world, goes so quickly to contempt mode with those who challenge him, who attacks someone's physical appearance, who mocks their disability, who denies their intelligence, who labels them a failure. But as tempting and understandable as it may be to return contempt for contempt, the author says, number one, it's ineffective because contempt from the socially vulnerable to the socially powerful just doesn't work. It's not going to have any impact, contempt. And the second reason it's not good is because it just legitimizes it in the whole society. It's fair game for anybody and everybody to show contempt, to be mean-spirited, to flush kindness down the toilet. Love kindness. It's easy to dump on Trump, but what about me? What about you? When Richard Spencer, the white nationalist, white suprematist, was sucker punched in the face Inauguration Day, as he was giving an interview to the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, there were a lot of people on social media apparently that were cheering. Punch a Nazi in the face. Kind of a call to action. It's partly understandable by those of us that believe that his views are clearly harmful and dangerous. They're horrendous. Yet as people of faith, don't we also consider Richard Spencer to be a child of God and a human being worthy of respect? And the truth is that loving kindness practically is so much more effective. It was the people who loved kindness that transformed R. Derek Black, the fellow I mentioned a couple weeks ago. Another white nationalist supremacist whom people on his college campus invited into their dorm rooms and engaged him in dialogue rather than punching him in the face, even though there were probably a lot of people on campus that wanted to punch him in the face. But it was that kindness, that long-suffering dialogue that radically transformed his views. Do justice, walk humbly with God, yes. But part of the trio is love kindness. Quite the opposite of superficial niceness, of being afraid to take a stand and confront when necessary. Being kind takes strength of character. I really believe it does. Extending kindness, true kindness, requires strength of character and remembering that every human being is a child of God and worthy of respect. May each of us grow deeper in all three practices, including practicing genuine kindness with those who probably carry a load that we know little to nothing about. Amen.